Hi guys, Lily and I are going to show you today how to do the Reflex Lab. And we're going to start with the voluntary action. So my students will do voluntary action on the first day, learn the procedure, and the second day you'll do reflex action. For both days, it's really important to wear shorts or a skirt or sweatpants so that you're going to be able to put electrodes onto one person's leg. They have to go up about 7 inches up the leg. So keep that in mind if you're preparing for this lab. I've already attached the electrodes to Lily. The first electrode is supposed to be about 2 inches, 2.5 inches above the knee, and the next one about 6 inches above the knee. And it really helps if you clean the area with alcohol first. So I used some isopropyl alcohol that just removes any oils and makes sure you get a really good connection. And then the last lead just goes on the lower leg, so maybe like 4 inches below the knee should work. Then you have to open up your Vernier graphical analysis software. And I'm using the LabQuest Mini. There's also a wireless version, but I plug in my LabQuest Mini, and into the first channel, channel 1, I plugged in my EKG, and channel 2, I plugged in my accelerometer. So here we go. We are ready to collect data. Okay, I've been practicing collecting some data, so you can see that on there. Before you start collecting, it's really important to make sure that you have it set to enough time. So you have to change the time. I'm going to change it to 60 seconds. Actually, I'm just going to change it to manual. So I can run it as long as I want. That'll work better, so I can make sure to get all my data. I'm leaving the rate and interval the same. Okay, I have a tip for you guys before you start. I think it's always fun to see how right we are about things in science, and so I'm going to ask you to make a prediction of how long you think it will take for the test subject to kick after hearing the hand hit the table. Write that prediction down. So in my data table, you can see the voluntary movement, write the prediction of time. Make sure to put it in seconds, and it can be less than a second. So if you think it's going to be less than a second, you could write 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.05 or whatever you think it's going to be. I'm going to start my collection manually when I push the collect button. The accelerometer is going to measure when you swing the reflex hammer. In my case, I'm not going to use a reflex hammer because I don't think it's necessary. I'm just going to hold the accelerometer. I'm going to hold it so that the arrow is pointing toward the direction of the surface that I'm going to be hitting. So when I hit the table, the accelerometer moves, and that's going to be recorded. Lily will hear the noise, and she's going to kick her left leg when she hears the noise. Right, Lily? Mm-hmm. Go ahead and close your eyes, Lily, so you don't get any triggers from anything except hearing it. I will push collect. Here we go. Whoops. Close your eyes. If you're the subject, try to keep your legs still when you're not kicking. Those are nice big kicks. You have to do this at least 5 times. I went ahead and did 7 just so I would have some extra data. I'm now going to show you how to interpret the data using Vernier. So if you're a distance learner, your teacher may instruct you to use this data. But if you're doing this on your own, don't write down anything that I'm going through. Just keep track of how to interpret the data. So first we're looking for the time at which the muscle contracted, and then we're looking for the time of the stimulus. I actually kind of go the reverse. So I look for the stimulus first because it happened first, and then I look for the time of the muscle contraction. The stimulus is the acceleration because remember I was holding the accelerometer, so when I moved it, that was my hand hitting the table. That's what stimulated Lily to kick her leg. So you click on that, and when you click on it, it's going to tell you what time that happened. So it happened 2.175 seconds after I started collecting. So under time of stimulus, I'm going to write 2.175. Keep every digit. Those digits are precious. Don't write the unit seconds because that's already in the data table. So just write 2.175 under time of stimulus, just as I did. Then we're going to record when the muscle contracted. The muscle contraction is the EKG up above because it's measuring the electricity that is passing through your quadricep muscle when you kick. Now you can see it's already at 2.175, but now we need to see where it should be on this top line. So I'm going to drag over until I see the first spike. It looks like that happened at 2.590 seconds, so I'll write that down under time of muscle contraction. Again, do not write the unit's over to the side, so just write the number. And now we're going to find the difference between those two numbers. So you're just going to subtract when the muscle contracted minus the time of the stimulus. When I subtracted those two numbers, I came up with 0.415. So that's the difference between when I hit the table and when Lily actually kicked her leg, a little less than half a second for that voluntary action. But one data piece isn't enough, so now we're going to collect the data from 4 more kicks, and then we'll average the difference in time for a more accurate reading. This time I'm going to change it up. We're just going to write down each stimulus first, and then we'll go back and do the muscle contractions. So this is the second time we see a big spike on the bottom, and that was at 7.520. That again is the time of the stimulus. The third time that I swung my hand and hit the table was right here, 11.175. I'm going to skip this one because it doesn't look very good and go over to the next one. So it's okay to skip data points that you don't think are very representative. My fourth kick, I hit the table at about 19.870. And finally, the last one was 24.445. Okay, now we're going to look at when Lily actually kicked. Each kick should come slightly after the stimulus, and so my second stimulus was at about 7.5. So I'm looking for what happened right after the 7.5, and I'm going to go to the largest spike that happened afterward. It's kind of hard to know exactly when she kicked, but I'm going to go right there and write down 8.085. The next time I hit the table was at 11.175 seconds, so we're right around here. Let's again go to the first major spike, 11.450. Now we're going to come right here because I next struck the table at 19.87 seconds, so it must be this one, 20.140. And finally, the final time I struck the table was 24.4 seconds, and Lily kicked at 24.610. So this is my data so far. It doesn't make any sense to average the time of the stimulus and the time of the muscle contraction, so I have a line through those areas, but we should figure out how long it took her each time to respond to the stimulus. So you're going to do the subtraction 4 more times, and then you need to average those 5 numbers. And our most meaningful number by far will be this number right here, because it's the average amount of time it took Lily to kick when she heard me strike the table. I hope that this video helps you guys collect great data on voluntary responses and/or get some data from us that you can use to interpret. There will be a video tomorrow about how to do the involuntary response using the patellar reflex. So stay tuned for that. Have a good one.